Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are going to be taking a look at a brand new palette that was only released last week. This is the new Nudification palette from W7. It's kind of turning into a W7 focused week this week. It's a complete accident. I did Tuesday's video to go in line with the giveaway that I was running with them, and I think on Tuesday actually I ended up receiving the new palette and I was like, well, it's brand new, I want to film with it. So that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to do this review in my usual format, so we're going to start off with the details of the palette, follow it up with the swatches, then we'll do the tutorial for the eye look. I'm only doing the eyeshadow today, I haven't done like the liner or anything, I was really lazy. And then after that I will give you my final first impressions on the palette. If you want to skip ahead to any section, I will probably forget, but I will try to put timestamps in the description box down below. So let's just get started. So this is the Nudification palette from W7, and the first thing that I want to talk about is this packaging, because it really reminds me of one particular thing. You see it, right? It's not just me, is it? I think that the person who designed this either had no idea what they were doing, or they knew exactly what they were doing, and they were counting on people like me who grew up obsessed with The Sims going, oh my god, I need it just for the packaging. Now this, interestingly, is a dupe for the Too Faced Born This Way palette. As far as I'm aware, this is the first time that W7 have done a Too Faced palette dupe. I know they have a couple of Christmas sets on their website at the moment that you look at them and you go instantly, right, that is Too Faced. But in terms of eyeshadow palettes, I don't really remember seeing any before. I know a lot of people out there don't really like the idea of dupes and copying. Personally, I quite like them because it gives you access to something that you might not be able to afford otherwise. The original Too Faced palette is £35. Not the most expensive palette out there, but not always affordable for everyone. You can't always prioritize that. And in comparison, this one is £6.95. In terms of how affordable it is, if we take a look at the weight, we're getting 12 grams of product, which is divided by 16 eyeshadows. So we are getting 0.75 grams of shadow, which isn't massive. But then if we look at the cost per gram, we're only at 58p, which is really affordable. Now there was something that confused me a little bit, because looking at their website, they mentioned that they have 4 types of shadow formulas. They have soft mattes, sultry shimmers, modest metallics, and jaw-dropping toppers. However, when you then look at the back of the palette, where we have a diagram as always with the shades numbered and then the ingredient list, we actually only have 2 ingredient lists, so there is only 1 metallic formula. The 2 that are considered toppers are some of the lighter ones, so I don't know if that's why they do consider them to be toppers a bit more, but yeah, I found that a bit confusing because they're literally listed here. I did, as always, compare the ingredient lists in these ones to the other W7 eyeshadows that I own. The matte formula seems to be completely unique to this one. As for the shimmer formula, it does seem to be very similar to one of the shimmer formulas in the Total Eclipse palette, although the order of ingredients was slightly different. So overall, they seem to be unique to this palette, but the shimmer formula was quite close to one in the Total Eclipse palette. In terms of additional information on the back, we have the shelf life after opening, which is 18 months, and as this is a pressed pigment palette, we do also have a warning that this is not intended for the immediate eye area, and to stop using immediately if irritation occurs. I say this every time, but I use pressed pigments on my eyes all the time. I've been absolutely fine. It is normally a requirement for US law that they need to be labelled that way, but they are considered safe in the EU. So then when you actually open up the palette, this is what it looks like on the inside, and they've just gone for the exact same layout as the Too Faced palette. There's no trying to hide it or anything. Again, I know some people aren't going to be happy with that. The way it's arranged is to have the matte shades be bigger and then the shimmer shades be smaller. My personal opinion on that is that I would rather it was the other way around. I tend to find that I get through shimmer shades a lot quicker than mattes. Some people probably prefer it the other way around because you might use mattes every day and then only use shimmers for like a night out. But the shimmer pans are quite small, so if you are someone who likes to use your shimmers with your finger, it's not the easiest, and if you wear acrylic nails, I think you will struggle. So that is just something to keep in mind. We do also, as always, have a mirror, but despite that, the palette is still incredibly lightweight. And you will also notice that there is no brush included in this one for once. I know some people do like having the brushes included in the palettes, but I think at this point it's a little bit wasteful. I think overall, you know, people are better off investing in good brushes that they're going to reuse over and over again, and we're better off just getting rid of you know, the brushes that are in these palettes that aren't always that great. So I'm actually really glad to see for once that they don't have a brush in there. So that is it for the details. So let's actually get down to some swatches. I think what I'm going to do today, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I'm going to do the mattes first and then I'll do the shimmers. So I'm going to start off with the first shade, which is called Canvas. This is barely visible on me, but this is the kind of shade that I really like having in a palette because it actually matches me quite well. So it's the kind of shade that's really good for me to soften out the edges of my eyeshadow. Next up we have Undone. These are quite chunky. I don't know if you can see, but there's like a lot of, not dust, I can't remember my words right now, but they are quite chunky as I'm putting them down. They're pressed pigments, so I feel like that's kind of expected at this point. Then we have Stripped. Next up we have the shade Explorer, and then we have Masterpiece, and then Tan Lines. So as you can see, there's clearly some that are a lot more cool toned and then some that are a lot warmer. I do think a lot of the shades in this palette look like they're quite light, and when the first swatches were released, they did not look impressive. I mean, they show up really well on me, but I am really light. Then we have Undertone, and then this one's quite naughty, Centerfold. So that is all of our matte shades. I feel like even though I am someone who's really pale and they are showing up on me, I feel like I would have liked a little bit more variation. Maybe like another shade down here. I don't know, I feel like some of them look quite close to each other and I would have liked something else. Obviously they're basing this around the original palette and I don't know what the original palette is like, but I feel like I would have liked at least another deep shade. I feel like you could get a bit more variety out of it. So let's move on to the shimmers, and normally W7 shimmers do swatch quite well. The first one is called Inner Glow. Then we have Hers. Ooh, that is so reflective when you swatch it. Very pretty. Then we have Full Exposure. W7 shimmers do tend to swatch quite well. These do look really nice and reflective. Then we have Wink Wink. Doesn't look massively different from Full Exposure, does it? Then we have Caution. And then Warning. Then we have Rebel. And then Alert. See, I feel like there's a bit more variety within these and they're a bit more interesting than the mattes are. These two are definitely very close. This one's a little bit more red, I would say, but I don't necessarily feel like you need both. These two, actually they do look quite different on screen. That one feels a little bit more purpley, a little bit more red. This one a bit more golden. So I do like how much variety there is in these. So now that we've done the swatches, let's move on into the eyeshadow look. All right guys, my eyes are primed as always with my P. Louise base. So we are gonna jump straight into the eyeshadow palette. I feel like there's not that much that's very dark in this palette. So I didn't want to start off with my darkest shade. I wanted to start off with a slightly lighter one and then build up over it with the darkest one, but then I feel like there's not that much choice. I think I'm going to start off with the shade Undertone then on a Zoeva 231. Seems to pick up all right. So that is going to go into my crease, and I don't want to go for something like really high up and really dramatic today. I want to keep it a bit more toned down, so that is going literally in my crease. I think it needs a bit more packing on. Okay, there we go. I was a bit worried about pigmentation. I've added a bit more on and I'm blending it out and it seems okay. But considering this is my second to darkest matte, it's not super dark and I am really pale, so just something to keep in mind. Okay, so in terms of being the first shade, that's pretty good. It's gone on well. Don't feel like I've really got any issues with patchiness or any difficulties. It went on a bit sheer, I added a bit more on, it's fine. Yeah, that's kind of all there is to say for the first shade. Next up, I think I'm gonna go for the shade Masterpiece. And the brush I'm taking is a Morphe M154. And this is a new brush. I did place an order with Morphe last week, I think. They had some really good Black Friday offers. Is anything happening? Trying to make sure I don't end up like accidentally going too high up, so this brush is quite nice for that. I just don't feel like I'm noticing massively in terms of a second colour. I mean, I can see it's being softened out and it's blending like absolutely fine, but I see the difference in shades, not massively. Okay, I think next I'm gonna go into the darker shade to see if I can deepen it up. And that one is called Centerfold. And I'm taking that on a Morphe M506. Ooh, okay, that is a bit more pigmented than I expected. I'm just brushing off some of the excess on the back of my hand. Okay, having a little bit of struggle with the blending. Just gonna pop it on the outer corner as well. Yeah, I just feel like it's struggling a bit with blending. Kind of wish I'd started off with that shade now. Maybe they're not very good at overlapping, but that's what we test here. I'm going back in with a bit more of undertone to see if I can help out. I do like the way it's deepened things up though. That is nice, because it was lacking a little bit of depth. But if I had to do it again, I think I would go in with Centerfold first and then blend out from there. I think I'm actually going to take a bit more of Centerfold, drag it more into the front. And then I'm going to go back in with a bit more of Masterpiece. Okay, I feel like maybe now I'm getting a bit more of contrast. And then I'm going to take a Morphe M456. This is a brand new one. Exciting. And we're going to go into Explorer. There we go. So again, I'm going to go really softly over the edge. Really try not to make my shape too big, but just blend out the edges. Okay, that is blending it out really softly. I just don't feel like I'm seeing a massive difference between all the shades. Also slightly messed up my shape. I've taken it a bit higher than I wanted and I'm not super happy with it. Luckily, we do have a really light shade that should match me pretty well, which is the shade Canvas. Oh, that one picks up really, really well actually. This is a Morphe M330. I'm gonna pat it all over the brow bone and then blend it over the front. Okay, there we go, that's just toned it down a bit. Then I'm going to take a bit more of Masterpiece, just to redefine the shape. And then Explorer again. And then back in with the brush that I used with Canvas. And then I think I'm going to take a bit of undertone as well. Okay, in terms of blending, I feel like that was really straightforward. I don't feel like I had any issues. It's more like I don't really feel like I can see the difference between some of the shades all that much. I really wish I'd started off with Centerfold and then blended it out and then come back with more, just because I feel like it was a bit difficult to blend out, and in fact I've got a little bit of a gap here. And I do feel like it's gotten a bit lost, so I'm just adding a bit more. Let me bring it a bit further forwards as well. And then I'm blending out with the Zova 231. In fact, I'm going to blend out with all the brushes, but I'm not going to take any extra product at this stage. Okay, I do think it is a really nice blend. Looking at it up close, I do think it looks really smooth. Everything has blended in together. I kind of went back and forth between the shades a little bit, but again, I do think I should have started off with the darkest one and then worked my way up and then deepened it again. In terms of the blending though, I think it's fine. It's not patchy or anything. I do think some of the shades are maybe just a little bit too similar. So I'm just going to go and do the same thing on the other eye, and then we'll come back to do the lid, because I haven't decided what I want to do with that yet. Alright, so for my metallics or shimmers or toppers, whatever they want to call them, I'm really drawn to Wink Wink and Caution, and they have the same undertones as the rest of the shades that I've used. Sure. So I'm not going to do a cut crease today, and I do normally like to do them for reviews because I do think they're a good way of testing everything, but I'm feeling a bit lazy today, guys. So I'm going to try no base, no glue, no nothing. We're going to start off with the shade Wink Wink. I don't think that's picking up. Okay, I've dug in a bit more. Okay, we are we are going places. The brush I'm using is an older one, so I don't have a name, but it's kind of a flat, fluffy one. It's okay. I will try just spraying the brush, seeing if that makes a difference. I'm going to take some more. I am having trouble like actually digging into it, so what I will do on the other eye as well is just try my finger, but we're going to start with spraying. Okay, that is a lot easier to use. I wouldn't say that's made a difference to how it's applying, but it is easier to use. So I'm just taking that up to my crease, and then I think about halfway is good. On the other eye, let me quickly try my finger, which is a bit difficult because these pans are quite small. Okay, it's just immediately a lot easier. It's definitely not the most exciting metallic. I'm just gonna use the brush now just to be a bit more precise. I mean, it's pretty, but kind of just okay. So now I'm gonna try the shade Caution, which is down here, and I'm taking a Morphe M166. So just trying a slightly different brush to see how that goes. Oh, okay, I kind of like the tones in this one. But again, it's not really doing much, so I'm going to pick up some more and spray my brush. I think the brush might be part of the issue here. Just a bit too tough. It's not really picking anything up, so I'm going to go for something a bit fluffier. Is that more creamy formula again? Yeah, it's really chunky, really creamy, and it's really struggling to pick up, but let me spray that again. See, it's interesting because spraying them doesn't really seem to make a difference to the shade. I'm just going to take a bit more of Wink Wink just to blend them in, and then back in with this one. Doesn't really make a difference to how intense they are or anything, but it definitely makes a difference to the application. Yeah, definitely recommend going for a fluffier brush. Something that's too stiff just isn't going to work. And then on the other eye, let's go in with my finger. Yeah, again, that's going a little bit easier. Oh, I've taken it a bit further than I did on the other eye, never mind. Now I'm going to go back in with some of Wink Wink to blend. I am going to try a little bit of Alert, which is the darkest one. I'm just kind of expecting the same thing because they are all the same formula. So that's just going on the outer corner just to finish things off. And then again, I'm going to go back into some of Caution. I mean, that one applied absolutely fine. I didn't really feel the need to try a finger instead or anything. They're just not massively exciting, they're just not, but they're fine. I think I'm just gonna go in with a bit of Masterpiece back into the crease just to blend out a little bit. To be fair, I don't know how the original Too Faced palette compares, like how glittery the shades are in that one, but I feel like if it was me building a nude palette like this, I would definitely have some really standard metallic shades that are just a bit more wearable, and then I would also include like a really duochrome one or like some really, really glittery ones, some really interesting ones. Yeah, I mean, they're fine. They're just fine. Okay, so now I'm going to take some glitter glue because I want to try adding a little bit more, seeing if we can make it a bit exciting. So I'm just going to use my NYX one. Taking my Morphe M224. I'm going to try and come right at the front. And I'm going to try the shade Hers. Ow, I just poked myself in the nose. I'm going to take the shade Hers at the front. I'm using a Morphe M124. I mean, they all kind of pick up the same, so they don't pick up great on a brush. Okay, right, we are getting somewhere. Except for maybe the Queen Bee palette, because that is a completely different formula. With all of these recent palettes that I've tried, I would personally avoid a cut crease. Well, with the P. Louise base anyway. I don't think it sits quite right. I don't think the texture's particularly nice, or it isn't on my eyelids anyway. I think a glitter glue is the way forward, and I do think considering them as toppers, I mean, I know that the lighter shades in here are considered toppers, but I just think you're gonna have a better time. Yeah, I think glitter glue, layering, that's going to be your best friend with these, and actually that is really pretty. I do actually really like that. It's kind of brought it up a notch. Just going to take a little bit more of Wink Wink just to blend. I mean, these shades definitely have a good amount of opacity. Like, I didn't have any fresh base or any glitter glue under the darker ones, and they did work. they're just not massively metallic. So if you want better payoff, if you just want to make the whole thing a bit more exciting, just going with the glitter glue. I've just quickly primed my lower lash line, and all I'm going to do here is use the shades that I've used on my eyelids. So I'm just going to start off with Centerfold again, just taking it on a small flat brush, and I'm going to pack it on as close as I can to the lower lash line. Fallout is pretty minimal though, considering this is pressed pigment. Normally pressed pigment also means like insane amounts of fallout, but I'm pleased to say that is not the case today. Then I'm going to go into undertone, just using a small blending brush. Then just into Masterpiece with my Morphe M514. I'm just trying to connect it up as well. Just make sure that that is really nice and smooth. And then Explorer with my M456. The last thing I'm going to do is take the lightest metallic, or topper rather, which is called Inner Glow, and I'm taking that on a Nancy tapered crease brush. Does look super, super creamy. Ooh. So we've got no glitter glue, no fresh base here or anything. That looks like a good highlight shade. That is actually really pretty, really bright. This is the type of brush that I do find works quite well with these more creamy shades. I found the same thing with the Colourpop The Child palette, with the Super Shock shadow formula on the lightest shade there. Overall, it's not a formula that I would put in a palette, but I know that some people like it. You've got to make palettes for everyone. It's just not a formula that I particularly like. Alright, so that is it for the eyeshadow. That was fairly quick. I feel like what just took longer was having to go back over and blend a few times at the beginning, but again, I think that was me. I feel like these aren't great for layering because they are pressed pigments. Start with your darkest one. I do like the effect on the eye. I do like the way it looks. I feel like it would have been more intense had I used glitter glue, because where I've got the lighter one on the inside, it's just bringing in so much light, it's got so much more shine. So this is a formula that's just going to be a bit nicer if you use a glitter glue underneath. I mean, that is the case for a lot of shimmers anyway. If you use them with a glitter glue, it's just going to amp them up a bit more. But that is it for the eyeshadow. I'm going to go and do the rest, everything off camera, because otherwise if I try and do some liner, I have to make sure that I stay in frame, and I always end up messing up the liner when I do that. So yeah, I'm just going to go and do everything off camera, and we'll come back and have a chat about the palette. Alright guys, here is the finished look, which of course you guys have already seen at this point, but here it is anyway. Sorry, one of my eyelashes is gluing my eyes shut. It's really annoying, but I'm really glad that I managed to find a lipstick that matches the eyes really, really well. And you guys know me, I had to go and do some form of graphic liner. Everything I've used will be listed down below. There wasn't really anything new that I needed to show you guys. The only new product that I have is the Revolution Pro Sculpting Bronzer, which is a bronzer, and I feel like it's nice, but I don't have much to say about it so far. So I'll probably mention it in a video at some point, give you some more thoughts, but I didn't feel like there was much to show you guys apart from the eye look. So I once again misplaced the palette. So let's jump into my final first impressions on this palette. I think that as far as affordable nude palettes go, it's not a bad option. It's definitely not the best palette that I've ever tried, but overall, looking at this look, it came out nice. And for that price, you know, what more are you asking for? It's not like a Huda palette where it's like £60 and you're like, right, if this comes out rubbish, then it's not okay. For a more affordable price, you can be a bit more lenient. You know what, actually, considering my last experience with Too Faced eyeshadow and comparing it to this, again, I don't know what the actual Born This Way palette is like, but I had the Chocolate Bonbons palette. I was really, really disappointed by that. The biggest issue that I had in terms of blending was with the darkest shade, because I put that on top of the others, and I don't think I should have done that. I think I should have just used that first and then gradually gotten lighter. But the final blend, I mean, it's all hidden by liner now, but the final blend is nice. There's not really anything bad to say about it. I had an easier time than I've had with some other W7 palettes before. The metallics aren't super exciting. I think the best way of using them is definitely over a glitter glue. Having tried a few different things, you know, I don't think spraying helps in any way with making them more intense. I think the thing is for me, and I know a lot of my followers on Instagram, we've had this conversation, a lot of people feel this way. There's just so much makeup these days. It takes a lot for a new product to impress me. It's a nude palette. It's a nice nude palette, but I would try and kind of push the metallics to the next stage just because I would want the palette to stand out. So I would want to have some really intense metallics or some really sparkly ones. Does that make them bad? Absolutely not. It's just, in my opinion, because there is so much makeup out there, I just want something to stand out. I would have wanted something just a bit more exciting. I think this is probably quite a good option for beginners. It's super affordable, it's super wearable. I would just get a glitter glue as well, but I mean, what more are you looking for? If you enjoyed today's video, then do as always, please make sure you give it a big thumbs up. Leave me a comment letting me know what you thought about it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on my next video. And I'll see you all on the next one. Bye guys.